Welcome. This is Leading with Spirit, the show that gives you an in-depth look at topics like what it takes to navigate your spiritual journey, how to heal yourself and grow your spiritual gifts, and balanced practices to expand your business and your spiritual leadership. I'm your host, Spirit Bird, shamanic teacher, healer, and author, here to guide you on your journey to becoming your most potent spiritual leader. Are you tired and stressed from the drive to push and do more, bigger, better, faster, and always moving? I'm inviting you to come all the way back to the center of yourself, to pause and drop into your spiritual being just for you. If you've been feeling the call to bring more ceremony and ritual into your life, to get clear on your purpose and to reconnect to your own devotion and self-trust, you're invited to Holy, our upcoming event in February, where you will remember that you are deserving of complete devotion and trust. Holy is an extended ceremony where we'll be guiding you through community-sourced rituals and spiritual tools, accountability to embody the spiritual being you keep imagining you can be, and support sharing your gifts more openly with the world. Plus, we're going to have amazing guest speakers sharing tools on astrology, divine feminine, all kinds of gorgeous topics. To learn more, you can visit our website, holtonhealingarts.com, or DM me at holtonhealingarts, the word holy, and I'll get you started. I hope to see you there. I would love for you to join us. Let's play together. Have you ever crawled yourself into a hole so dark and so deep, where it feels like nothing works, no one cares, maybe you don't even care, feel kind of hopeless, and then maybe you get a surge and you try a bunch of things and you're determined to come out of it, and then you get tired and you give up again. And then on top of it, you're also self-aware. So you can see yourself in that hole. You can see you're the one that put yourself there, but you still can't seem to figure out a way out. For several weeks, I found myself really in a place of extreme self-doubts and really low self-worth. It was frustrating because I could tell what I was doing. I could tell that I was doing it to myself, and I was very clear and aware that, of what I was doing. And I also couldn't tell really where it was coming from or why I was doing it. I had a sense that I was tangling up some of my identity with my business goals, and that happens. That's part of business. That's why I always encourage you to evaluate stuff on the long-term side instead of the short-term, to avoid putting yourself in these pits where you feel like you're failing. But there was more than just this. It was more than just the goals. It felt like it was something else. And all of a sudden, all of these things that I teach others began to snowball, and I started to find myself sort of caught in the thing that I tell people specifically not to do. I caught myself comparing myself to other people and healers, and feeling like I'm not clear on my offer, and feeling like it's not valuable. Nobody wants it. And then I found myself attracting people who weren't available to see the value in the intense, beautiful, and deep spiritual work that I guide people through, and that I teach them so they can teach how to guide other people through it. And maybe even more frustrating, I kept attracting people who had wounds around vulnerability in comparison, right? Exactly where I was in. Like they would come to me for help, but then they would armor up suddenly, like they already knew what to do, already knew what I teach. And it's like, no offense, but you don't know, or you would already be doing it. I got caught in the belief that the 3D world was actually more important than the new paradigm experience that I know in my heart and that I deliver people into. I forgot I'm a bridge builder. So I do need to be in the 3D world, and I do need to have my other foot in the new paradigm too. And what I was finding myself questioning was whether that new paradigm was even real. Was it all a whole bunch of BS that I tell myself just to escape? Just because I don't feel like I'm succeeding? Just because I'm whiny and not cut out for this world, right? I would have questions like, what if I'm leading people down the wrong path? And it got to this place where it almost felt like this, like a fun house, like a fun house mirror, like a trick house. It would be like at the same time that I was showing someone how to enter the new paradigm and the new earth, I would flip around to the other side and couldn't see my way back in. It was like those trick doors. At the same moment, I would reflect to someone the value of their gifts and how to bring them into the 3D. I would fall out of belief in my own. On this episode, I want to take you through the real view of entrepreneurial life for seers and bridge builders, including the inner turmoil that, yes, even evolved people still deal with. Plus, I want to touch on facing the empath shadow and finding the gift yet again. So, the first thing I want to acknowledge is I really don't want to share some of this with you. There's a part of me that knows being vulnerable is the new paradigm, right? And my old self at the same time still is afraid that if I share some of my struggles, I will somehow discredit myself. One of the things that I see that got me into that hole is that I got attached to the outcome of my business and correlating the representation of my success to be a match to my own value. I got attached to my success only being seen in the 3D to be real, to be justified. And of course, I mean, I say this a lot, but I want to emphasize this doesn't mean that you don't have goals. The bypass here would be to say, oh, see, look at the person that was chasing success. Therefore, I'm going to keep myself in my little box and keep myself in the belief that I'm happy doing what I'm doing, or that I don't actually want that, or keep myself in the belief that chasing that only wounds ourselves, because that's not true. And on the flip side of it, yes, you can go overboard. You can get attached to results looking a certain way. Yeah. And then on the flip side, I would also have these quick moments of trying to escape this fear that maybe what I'm doing doesn't actually matter. And to escape that, I would basically place judgments on those that were in the 3D and decided that they were wrong or bad, or the classic, you wouldn't understand because I'm so evolved, right? And then I would punish myself for thinking that. Then I would catch myself being all judgy, and then I'd punish myself for being judgy. And so since then, I've learned how to embody being at different places than other people without having to think of myself as above them. One of the things I've also realized is I am highly empathic. And even though I'm pretty clear on what's mine and what isn't, because I'm always growing my gifts via the inner work, I am also always becoming more sensitive. Now, let's be clear. There's a big difference between being sensitive and being fragile. Being sensitive doesn't mean that I need extra protection or need to be extra careful, or that other people need to be more careful around me or more responsible for their feelings and actions so I don't have to feel it. I am aware that it's my choice to feel other people's feelings. And that when I do, it's not so I can show them something to fix, but so I can show myself where I still hold a pocket of mistrust in myself, where I still have a place that wants to be healed. So I have to admit here that sometimes I can be hard on empaths. because so many people use the term empaths or HSP to either escape from responsibility or fall into the illusion of safety in victimhood. If I can latch on to being sensitive, aka fragile, then I can make it other people's fault if I feel anything, right? Or they tout that they're somehow special because they're gifted. But for me, at this point in my development, I'm usually aware of when I'm feeling someone else's thing. But this one that was happening this time, I didn't know. I didn't know where it was coming from. I didn't know that it was coming from outside of myself. And then I didn't know that it was actually coming from within, and I had to project it outside of myself so I could locate where it was in myself in the first place. And so, to be honest, I got myself into the spot where I was just feeling kind of crazy. Like, am I just making shit up? Am I just being a wimp? But I was actually feeling the lack of value, at least that I perceived subconsciously in others around me. And it turns out some of them didn't have share the same values as me, didn't value the spirit world, right? Didn't value the spiritual work that I do, or didn't feel that it was valuable anyway. And actually, what happened is it came to the surface that it was true. And it did the opposite of what you would think. You would think that it coming to the surface would then like bust it wide open and make me feel it even more, right? Make me upset at my friends or the people around me. But in the end, I was relieved because I could finally see it. I could finally see I was feeling it for a reason. And then I could take more responsibility for what part I had in it instead of trying to figure out where it's even coming from. And meanwhile, part of the trap here is that my friend, who happened to be the person to mirror this to me, had been worrying about me being too sensitive and trying to hide it from me because they didn't want me to spiral even more. And if they had kept hiding it, I never would have discovered it and I never would have been free from it. And it was actually accepting that, yes, it is true. Some people don't value the spiritual work that I do. And I don't need them to. That allowed me to be released from it. It allowed me to see, oh, that actually isn't mine. Or maybe there was a part of me that was still attached to it, but I am choosing to release that now. I'm dropping the game of proving. It's also a place where I began to get clear about coming back to my own place of knowing. And the same is true with my own questioning of the feminine way and the way of spirit that also comes up from time to time, right? Because it's such innate part of how I work and how I operate that I tend to lean on it a lot. And of course, part of my journey has been also learning to lean into the 3D. But I got myself into this spot I was really seriously questioning sort of that 5D way of being. And I had to drop all the way into that self-doubt and find the place where I could differentiate my true feelings from those around me, from what society has shown me in the past, or how I've chosen to view the story I placed around what society has shown me in the past. And I could differentiate my feelings from those around me, not to make them wrong, but because the truth is they aren't necessarily wrong. When people approach something like business from the mind versus spirit, it isn't because they're more right or the other way around because I'm more right. It's because we've chosen different pathways, right? And I had to go all the way into questioning myself in order for me to find where I truly believed it and make that choice again, you know? It's like, being in a relationship. It's like waking up next to your partner and choosing that path again and again. And sometimes we have to doubt it in order to choose it even more strongly, be even more committed. And I guess this is the part that's like more vulnerable that I still have like a touch of shame around, that I realized I strayed from my own beliefs in favor of what I viewed as experts or people outside as outside authority said would work better or recommended. I wanted to follow the proven pathways. And from here, this is where I want to go into strategy of business and marketing and all of the magic stuff. So, and actually, before I move on, let me just also say that, okay, so I just went through this place of attaching to external ideas about what works best and how to do things the best or the fastest or the right way, right? And let me say that skipping over the 3D stuff like marketing and sales and data and money is spiritual bypassing. You can't do it. You've got to go through all that stuff if you want to choose not to do it anymore. You can't just skip it. Well, you can try to skip it, but usually you don't get very far with it, right? So I've been watching this place where a lot of practitioners want to skip over that part, including money, for practice, skip over the sales practices because of their judgment of them, because they're uncomfortable with them, because it doesn't come naturally. Great. It's just something you can learn. And if you want to grow your business, in reality, you can't be afraid of them. If you want to move beyond them, you have to move through them. And for most of us spiritual practitioners, we know how that works. We know you got to go straight into the fear, right? And you're doing it in a way that's also true for your learning and growth. So if you're using them, again, you need to go through them and use them and not bypass it all. And there's a little touch of me that says, don't say this, but the truth is, if you've been hoping that you can somehow manifest stuff out of nowhere without learning this, you're going in the wrong direction. If you keep hoping that you can just keep shining your light from the evolved side, but you haven't actually landed your feet on the ground in the 3D world, you're lying to yourself. You're lying to yourself. You're not the one. You're not special in that way. You can be the one shining the light, but you got to come to this side first. And once you do, then that's how you cross over. And likewise, or I guess on the other end of it, if you've been trapped in the 3D world trying to figure out from the mind, trying to figure out what funnel to use, or if I could just download somebody else's copy, or if I do what that person's doing, or if I just keep doing freebies, and somehow you're going to like hack the system and finally break free from using other people's strategies, you're also lying to yourself. And it's probably time for you to experience the 5D version of yourself because it's right there, ready for you to turn and see. And really, in the end, there isn't one way of doing marketing, right? There's not one way of doing healing. We each have our own unique way. What's more important is that you come into alignment within and you're clear about what that way is for yourself. I've also been watching this place where instead of just saying what we do and calling in our people, I've been watching this in myself. We point fingers at others and say, you were doing it wrong. That's this game of trying to sort of climb on top of each other or make more noise or, demonstrate our authority by putting somebody else down. And, I caught myself doing it because honestly, I was calling in the wrong energetic match. What was happening is I kept looking at people I know I would be able to help so much. And I kept trying to talk to them. But the thing is, they don't even know what they don't know. And I got caught basically trying to save people instead of calling people in who want to grow their gifts and explore esoteric knowledge and advance themselves as a healer and a business owner because they just love this work so much. So in the end, this whole journey that kind of felt like being dragged through the mud for a while and then trying to escape and realize that I was the one that was dragging myself and feeling pretty shitty for a while. And also being in this trap of wanting to hide what was happening because I thought that, if it was exposed, that I would lose my authority or that I would somehow devalue myself even more, that I would show up as a fraud. And of course, I know better than that. I know how this works, and I know the openness is the pathway that we're choosing now. So in the end, this is what I saw. When I was in my pit, this is how I got out. First of all, when I was young, like probably many of you, I got made fun of because I was different and made my own choices and often was proud of my choices, even if people didn't like it or they were unusual or different. And so my experience is that they didn't see me in my beauty and in my value and in my humanness. So what I carried for a very long time, and I still got my hands on it a little bit, is now anybody who reminds me at all of that automatically gets shut out with judgment, so that I can differentiate myself from them. And I took on the belief that others didn't value me. And in the end, because I was holding onto that, my belief that others didn't value what I valued, and me becoming the one devaluing them. And I locked myself in with my own self-judgment and lack of worth. I locked myself in with my own victimhood. But then I looked at it again. I looked at this belief again, and I saw that actually, it's not that they want to challenge me like the ones that hurt me before, or that they want me to prove myself. They're just curious. They want to see how I do what I do. They actually want to know how to use their gifts too, and not worry about what others will think. And I was devaluing myself and pushing others away so that I wouldn't have to see if it was true. And in the end, I saw my sabotage pattern square on. Manifesting the sliver of a doubt I have in someone else so I can blame them. And Spirit was showing me where I still have some doubt and still have some wounds unhealed. And so I'm grateful. When I finally decided to step out of that hole I put myself in, I had to wonder, why did I do that? Why did I put myself there in the first place? What was the point? Because there's a place where I was like, this is part of being a practitioner, is that you get yourself into these tricky spots so you can figure out how to get out. I was like, also, I'm not doing it just for other people, just to help other people, right? And well, I got to receive direct experience of what it feels like to let go of the idea of what your success will look like. I got to experience firsthand of what it feels like to get attached to that. Something that I probably judge other people for, probably too much, right? And it's easy to do. I see that now. I got to travel deep into the depths of self-suffering and just be with it to learn what it's like. And I got to discover a way out. Now I know how to find the door. I know how to help people find the door for themselves. But more than for other people, I got to remember for myself what it is like to make a choice. And I'm so grateful for all the people around me who stood at the edge and didn't baby me, didn't give me sympathy, didn't praise me because they were uncomfortable with me feeling bad, didn't say sweet things to temporarily cover up my hurt. That's a strong community. One that'll wait by your side and say, it's okay. Whenever you're ready to come out of your hole and join us again, we'll be here. Thanks for joining me today. Welcome to today's Member Query episode, where we explore questions about spiritual paths, intuitive gifts, growing a spiritual business, and shamanism. Do you have a question for us? Send us a DM at Holton Healing Arts. This question is from one of our Instagram followers, and the question is, how do I let go of my ego? And of course, that's a lifelong journey. But what I would say first, you want to be able to start to identify it. And there's lots of ways it can show up. But what I notice often is the ego shows up as either shoulds or shows up as being pushy. So anytime you kind of sense this like pushiness in what you should be doing or how you should be doing it, there's a good chance that it's the ego. Or like in another way of thinking of it is if you are doing something and you keep trying and keep trying and keep trying, and you don't seem like you're getting through, there's a good chance that that is also ego that's not ready to ask for help or to look for another way. And so we want it, usually what the ego attaches to is expectations. So it wants things to look a certain way, be a certain way, or feel a certain way, right? So it can stay safe, really, so it can know where it is and what's going on. It's more comfortable in the known than the unknown, right? So what I recommend is if you're in one of those spots where you're noticing the pushiness or you're noticing the shoulds, come back to your intuitive knowing. Take a pause, take a breath, and sit with one of two things. One, what has been repeatedly showing up in my life as a pattern, as something where I kind of keep getting the same thing over and over again. And in those situations, it's time for me to choose something different. And the other piece, right, is letting go of how you thought something was supposed to look, what you thought it was going to look like to achieve it, or, when you got there. And letting go of that allows you to become available for how life wants to work through you. And actually, I'm going to add one more quick piece here also. Oftentimes, we override our intuitive knowing with the ego, right? With the shoulds, with this is the best way, this is how it's worked before. So lastly, if you're noticing yourself kind of overriding, if you keep having this feeling or thought and you keep overriding it, there's a very good chance that you are stuck in the ego. And so just take a step back and come back to that intuitive knowing and give yourself permission to play with it and test it out. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Leading with Spirit. If you did, please share the link for this episode with your biggest takeaway, tagging me at Holton Healing Arts. It would also support me if you subscribed and left a rating and review of the show so we can support more people living their